Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Poema podcast. I am James Prescott, your host. Welcome back to the show. Really great to have you all back here again. And I'm very excited for this episode because this episode is a returning guest. It's only the second time they've been on the show, but it's certainly not only our second conversation because we've now been good friends for a good 4 years, and we talk at least once a month, probably more than that. Jamie Lee Finch, welcome back to the show.
Hi, James. Thank you.
It's so good to have you back.
It feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's like for us, it feels like just continuing a conversation that we're having all the time.
And like you said, once a month at least inside of our lovely little communal space that we're frequently meeting inside
That's right.
of.
Jamie and I are part of the same online community, and it's, which everyone in that community has co-created together, which is amazing.
Yeah, and it's been going for 4 years. You and I have known each other longer than that because we worked together prior to that point, though I can't remember exactly, but I think around 5 years. But yeah, the coven has existed for 4 years now, which is so wild.
I know, it's amazing. I think we started work. We had our first session in March 2020, but we
Did we? Whoa.
Yeah. Because I remember it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was
what a time. Wow.
It was so funny how I started internal family systems therapy and my coaching with you around the start of the pandemic.
Oh, perfect timing for both of us.
It really was. Yeah. And both of them are kind of connected. Internal family systems therapy is very much like an embodiment thing.
Yes, very much.
Because it's personalizing parts of your body and turning them into people, like trauma. So it kind of was in sync.
Yes.
I'm still doing IFS therapy.
Yeah.
I had an episode recently about it. So it's fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So lots of stuff has happened in that time. Like I remember the first session I had with you. Or that wasn't the first session. It was the first. It was like the session before the first session, like the
consultation.
Yeah, that was in like February or something, or January.
Yeah.
And I remember being really scared before that session.
Huh? Do you know why?
Yeah, I think it was because your image on Twitter at the time.
Yeah, it was a little scary.
Yeah,
I
was like, is Jamie going to think I'm like this like nasty white man, stereotypical white man who's ignorant and stuff? Is he going to hate me? I was a bit nervous before.
It's very brave of you to decide to approach anyway, honestly. Now that when I look back on that, I'm like, wow, any person who was the embodiment of anything I was raging at, which was pretty much any and every person on any given day, quite brave to decide to approach anyway. So good on you.
Yeah, I think I joined your shortlist when it was like 300 people.
Yeah.
Not thinking I would ever get to the top of it. So
yeah.
And then I did, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to explore this then. Like, I'm glad I did. Me
too. I'm very glad. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey from there to here for both of us. And what I wanted to explore today is the journey, because I know the journey you've been on, because I've seen it kind of at relatively close quarters.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's a really powerful story, and I thought it might be great to share it, because whilst in some ways you're doing a lot of the same things, but you're a very, very different person, and I mean that in a really good way. So tell us a bit about that journey, really, about from then to now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I actually just published an essay this morning that took me a few months to write. And what's coming up for me now and how to answer this question feels very in line with the story I told in that essay, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the ancient Sumerian myth of Inanna's descent. But it's one of the oldest human stories in existence. And it is what, both the Christ story and other stories that are similar to that archetypally and thematically, actually were sourced from and kind of pulled from, because you see in the myth, there is the story of this, powerful being who decides to descend into the underworld, into, what in Jungian analysis we would, kind of understand to be like the unconscious mind and your deepest held conscious and unconscious fears. And so Inanna descends into the underworld and doesn't quite go as successfully as she maybe intended, and she's stripped of all of her accoutrements and power and finery and adornments, and then eventually she's struck dead and she's hung on a hook from like a piece of rotting meat on the wall of hell for like 3 days. And then after 3 days, as the story tends to go, I don't know what it is about 3 days, but after 3 days, these little magical creatures come and revive her, and her descent becomes an ascent, and she's, and this is actually what allows this previously, yes, powerful, like goddess of love, to become like the queen of heaven, essentially. And that is, again, the oldest story that humans have been telling in our attempts to understand ourselves, which is that you have to go low. You have to be brought low. Something needs to bring you low in order for you to meet the version of yourself. And this is the part I left out in the story. The story is Inanna is descending into, the underworld, but the underworld is ruled by her twin sister, Ereshkigal. And her twin sister is the dark, shadowy. I already know you're loving this because of all the superhero like it's all
story.
the same stories everywhere, all the time, always. We're telling the same stories about ourselves. Yes.
Absolutely.
So of course, she goes and has this experience with like her shadow self, and then in facing the shadow self and being brought low, and that version of her being struck dead, then her ascent, her resurrection is one of wholeness and deeper aliveness and actual alignment and integrity. And that is the last 4 years of my life, was that experience, that process, and honestly longer than the last 4 years of my life. But if we're just going from first conversation in this context to this conversation, it's about 4 years. And that's very much what happened. I was building something from a certain state of consciousness of, it was of service, and I don't regret it. I was well trained, I was well equipped, and I was doing good work. And the way that I was doing that work was costing me something that I was not really paying attention to. And what it was costing me ultimately was, I was becoming increasingly chronically dysregulated in my body. Yes, kind of through the way I was overworked in the space holding I was doing, and like the specific way I was holding the space, where I wasn't really anchored in my body as much as I needed to be. And most significantly, I would say now from this vantage point, the necessity of me being heavily online in order to do my job. And then also I kind of use that as a little bit of an excuse. Let's be honest. I just really loved being an asshole on Twitter. It was like scratching some kind of itch for me. It was giving me something, and it was making me feel safer or stronger in some way in the world. But those were not actual like nervous system regulated, substantial, grounded states of strength and safety. They were very performative, but they were performative unconsciously. They were the things that I was doing and the person I was being because I believed unconsciously I needed to be and do those things in order to be safe and good, because that's what my developmental experience had taught me. So basically, I built something, and it's not even that what I built failed. It's that what I built became so successful that the success was untenable. And then ultimately the degree of success, and then me trying to run, like sprint to keep up with the success, and then having to perform the success of the thing I was sprinting to keep up with, like all came to this really fascinating and, I believe, inevitable head when the exact way I had been behaving on social media came full circle and slapped me in the face. And I was experienced and received that same way on social media, just unkind, no curiosity, tons of projection. And I couldn't, it had happened a couple times before. I think this is something that increasingly more and more people, those of us who have to like be online in order to live, it's something we know is going on. You can call it cancellation. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But I had managed to kind of like, you know, keep things together the 2 previous times something like this had happened to me. And this time, luckily, thank God, literally, I couldn't keep it together. It just, for weeks, there was just this like kind of barrage in my direction of just, you're wrong, you're bad. And and again, and I've told this story before, and I wrote about it. There's an essay about this exact story, which is the way I want to maintain telling it. I don't want to rehash it here, but there's an essay on my Substack, the one where I finally talk about Joshua Tree, where I tell all this and explain what I learned through it. Because what that experience really did for me, like I said, it held up a mirror to what had been happening inside of me, what I had been doing, while also somehow simultaneously being a somatic facilitator. I don't know how I was sustaining that dichotomy, but ultimately the story is that I wasn't sustaining that dichotomy. My body was not sustaining that. And shortly after it was before the Joshua Tree incident even happened. I had reached a point of really profound burnout in what I was doing, in my work in the world and how I was doing it. And I was extremely sick. I was extremely unregulated. I was extremely addicted to social media. So many people in my life were very, very worried about me. And I knew I could not ethically continue to be someone who held space for other people through transformational processes. So I stepped back. I took 15 months off from any sort of facilitation and most work. Luckily, I had set up enough structures in my business to allow me to be able to continue to sustain my livelihood for those 15 months, which I feel so grateful for past me for like overworking and setting up the structure where like that me could then take a vacation. But in those 15 months, I got really, really clear on what my actual ethics and values are. And very long story short, that forced me, that invited me, and really in some sense forced me to become very clear with myself that my highest ethic and value, at least at the time, and this changes, but at the time, my highest ethic and value was to only do what was ultimately nourishing to bodies, not even to people, but to bodies and for bodies. And so, again, very long story short, that led me to realize that what I most wanted to be doing was largely to shut the fuck up, to stop talking about things as if I knew about things. And I know a lot, but there was so much I did not know and needed to learn, and that will be true forever. I was tired of hearing myself talk. I was in many ways very exhausted of verbally facilitating. And so I decided what was really calling to me, what I needed to do was, number one, take profoundly good care of my own nervous system. And number two, enroll in massage therapy school to stop talking about bodies and instead move in the direction of receiving training to be able to touch bodies and allow the medicine that I offer to the world and the work that I do in the world become touch instead, and just go directly body to body. And I am now we are having this conversation on what is the afternoon before my very, very final hands-on class of my 1.5-year journey of massage therapy school. I am finishing school in like 2 weeks. I will be licensed in about 4 weeks. And I am 100% clear at this point that everything in my life, both personally and professionally, was always leading me in this direction, to this lineage, to body work, to hands-on manual therapy directly to bodies, and to the spiritual and energetic work that also comes along with that. And I could not have been a trustworthy, safe, or ethical facilitator to do what I'm doing now had I not totally crashed and burned, which then allowed me to just like clear everything out for 15 months and get really quiet and just back to the basic root of the only thing I know is that I have a body. And so the only thing I can conclude about that knowing is I believe, I think, and I feel like I know that my highest responsibility is to take exceptional care of this body. And in reorienting my life in that direction, it's changed everything. It's changed everything about my relationship to social media. It's changed everything about my relationship to, the previous chronic health issues I had. It's changed everything about my relationship to relationships and attachment. And it's changed everything about the way that I want to be of service in the world, which now, like I said, is this lineage of hands-on body work. So yeah, I think that's the most succinct way I could possibly describe what happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that. Like I said, I've seen this at
Yeah, you've gotten to
S11.
watch. It's so fascinating to me that, and I'm so grateful because everything I just described, that's, the 5, 6, 7, 8 minute version of what did take 4 years. And you saw close up, at least, sometimes more, once a month, the window into wherever I was in that process over the last 4 years. That's so crazy to me. And I love
Yeah,
it. It feels so good.
what I can also say, I'm not going to be trying not to be smug when I say this, but like I could see what was going on
Yes. Yes.
without you saying so much,
Yes.
and I could see where it was going to go, and it's gone exactly where I thought it would go.
You and so many of the other people that I've given that permission and felt safe enough to give that window
Yeah,
in real like intimacy and visibility in my life. I mean, that doesn't sound arrogant or whatever the word was that you, because it's true. What you're saying is true, and it is in direct alignment with everyone else who deeply knows me, what they have also said to
yeah,
me. Like, I saw what was occurring, and then I saw you course correct, and then I saw what was becoming possible, and yes, here you are.
yeah. That's right, and it's really great to bear witness to that with somebody that you care about as well.
Yeah,
And you came to. I remember you came to London during your sabbatical.
I did. That was such a pivotal moment in my journey.
I remember,
Wow.
and I remember you telling me um, about
I
some
had
things.
coffee with you the morning after my very first time in a sex club.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And I remember telling you
I
about
was
it. I was
you
like, this
said
is
that,
what I
not
did
me.
last night.
I didn't want to say anything about that unless you said it
No,
first.
that's why I went first. I was like, you probably don't want to mention it. I'll just go ahead and say it.
Yeah,
I was at
and
Torture Garden is what
am
I
I
was at.
right in saying you met your partner there?
Yes, so he is no longer my current kind of life partner, but that's how I discovered I was poly, or I will say remembered that I was poly. Was I met someone the night before we had coffee. I met someone. His name is Ziad. He will permanently and forever be one of my dearest people. We still talk, but we're no longer like identifying as romantic partners with one another. But we like immediately fell in love. It's a very wild story that I'm looking forward to writing in a forthcoming book someday. But we met that night. Actually, after I had I've never told this before. After I had coffee with you, I immediately went like over to his apartment and then spent like 3 days in that apartment. And it was just this. We completely like transformed each other's lives, and we went to this this party, this like sex party, like a few days later. But it was a friend of his was doing some graduate study, or maybe I think it was like PhD level study into the intersection of like sex positivity and psychedelics. So it was a sex party, but like everyone dosed like a small amount of a psychedelic. And we had this really beautiful, transformational, like vulnerable interaction with one another. And it was so funny because that whole night people were like, how long have you guys been together? And we're like, we met 6 days ago. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and then I came back to London that fall, and he and I went to Tunisia together to this music festival, and I had this like really, really profound experience. There's just so much. But yeah, once again, you specifically and uniquely had this window into like right as that was starting to happen too.
And the weird thing is, I remember, and I didn't tell you this at the time because I didn't want to preempt anything. I wanted you to tell your own journey. I was like, you were telling me about this experience. You were telling me about this guy, and I had this sense of like, this is someone really important.
Yeah.
This is going to be significant. Like something's going to happen with this. Like,
Yes.
and it did. And like, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Meeting Ziad invited me into an entirely new way of being in the world. Yes, I do mean as being polyamorous, but really what I mean more deeply than that is just I began to, and I guess this is another thing to say about the last 4 years, is that right around 2 years ago, right around now, I came back from Europe. And very long story short, a bunch of things happened, and I came to understand that I needed to get into 12-step recovery for codependence because my way of being was like becoming untenable. And what I mean by my way of being was my attempt to like attach and control to all circumstances and therefore all people around me. And so meeting Ziad really invited me into this possibility of this alternative way of being, which is like non-attachment in all things. And yeah, so that was, yeah, you were right. He was and is and will always be an incredibly significant, special, and important person to me. I love him so deeply.
Yeah.
And we met in a dungeon. I mean, like, that's so wild.
Yeah, it's very you though, isn't it? Like, I mean, like, I
Yes.
mean, as a compliment. I mean that as a compliment. Like, that's a yeah, of course, you met in a dungeon.
Of
Like,
course. Yeah.
yeah, that is amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I always felt like that your story is, well, it's not similar to mine in terms of the details, but in terms of some of the experiences and life changes, it's been similar.
Yes, I think I've definitely felt that too. Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, almost like a sibling thing. I don't know, but
Yeah, I think that's actually really good. Wow, you putting language to it like that, kind of the way that lands in my body feels very true.
yeah, like, because I mean, that stuff with social media was something I've had to deal with
Mm-hmm.
too.
Right. Yep.
And, I actually should maybe I should thank certain persons for purchasing Twitter, because that meant that since he
Yes.
bought Twitter, I've been on Twitter a lot less.
I think that's true for a lot of people, and I really think that I mean it's worth sending gratitude for that one thing, even if it makes us feel more grounded. Like, thank
Yeah,
you for
but
helping me discover a regulated relationship to this
yeah,
thing.
and it's also less toxic there
Yeah.
than it used to be.
Yes. Yes.
It's safer than it used to be.
Yeah. Wow.
But I had another Twitter account which I have for a specific interest, which is completely anonymous, and
Mm-hmm.
I was getting too addicted to that. I was getting too emotional about that, and so, like, something happened to me that happened to you, and I literally took 6 weeks off social media completely.
Yeah.
And, like, ever since then, it's been completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go on once, like, not once in 6 weeks, and I couldn't believe. I knew it would change everything,
Yes.
but I didn't realize how much it would change everything.
Totally.
And,
Yeah.
like, now I can just, like, even if I'm tweeting a lot, I don't let myself get emotionally attached.
Yes.
I don't have an emotional relationship with Twitter
Wow.
anymore. Like,
That's really
it's not.
significant, James. Wow. Because and I don't know. The thing that feels true for me is I can't even let myself, like, for me, it very much is like when you're an alcoholic and you are in recovery, you do not touch the stuff. And for
Yeah,
me, that is Twitter. I cannot touch the stuff. I can't. So I love and respect that so much, that you've learned how to have a regulated relationship too, because it is my hardest drug. I would say. And so I
yeah,
can, yeah.
and it's easy to. And I also don't talk about I don't talk about politics much on my
Mm,
timeline. I do occasionally, like during elections, but I don't get into debates.
yeah.
And I don't start doing, like, I don't start, if there's a big hot topic, I don't start debating it or making tweets about it,
Mhm.
because, like, one, what difference is it going to make?
Right.
And two, all I'm going to do is stir up people and get myself
And
wound up.
yourself.
Yeah,
And yourself. That's the
it's
main
not
thing.
worth my energy
Yes.
or time.
Yes.
I mean, I
Yes.
see other people, like, getting controversial and stuff like that, and radical or whatever. I don't get involved. I don't reply. I don't engage with it. You can have your views. Don't expect me to. I'm not getting sucked into this, right? People stop tweeting. I'm not getting into this. And I have to say, actually, I had a bit of an accidental outing of my demisexuality
Yeah.
recently on Facebook, and a lot of my Facebook friends are also Twitter friends, and I got the outpouring of solidarity I got on Twitter was incredible.
Yeah.
It
There are
was
things I miss about it,
it was
and
it was it was
I
it
miss
was
that
genuinely
sometimes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I felt really loved, and people were private messaging me and supporting me, and, like, I realized that, I'm actually part of a community here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the LGBTQ community is embracing me, like, and I'd never felt that before.
Online spaces are definitely, well, I'll make this an I statement. My relationship to like Twitter and kind of what the sort of online haven I built for myself there that served a purpose until it didn't. It was the purpose it served until it no longer served that purpose anymore, is that it actually did make me feel, or it helped me to feel safe in a world that did not feel safe for me for a period of time. And then it started becoming more real than the real world. And I started orienting towards it more than I was being willing to actually exist separate from it, to be off my phone, to, live in the real world as opposed to this online one. So yeah, it definitely, I get, like I said, there's things I miss sometimes. It's too many to even begin to name. Like it was fun. I had an enjoyable time. And I don't know, like anything this is something one of my teachers, communicated really beautifully recently, that there's this progressive cycle of use, abuse, and then addiction. And so we use, as human beings, we use things all the time, and that doesn't necessarily mean bad things. We use yoga, we use meditation, we use mindfulness, we use breathing, we use connections, we use great things, and sometimes we use like cannabis, we use alcohol, we use like substances or behaviors that like are fine in moderation. And even something like yoga and meditation, great in moderation, but you can take any of those things that work when you use them and become so dependent upon them that the use goes into abuse. And then from that point, if you're not paying attention and you haven't cultivated the somatic literacy, the ability to go, ooh, I feel like I'm losing myself a little bit here. If you have not cultivated that ability to notice that you're getting lost in the abuse of something, that you're now starting to hide from yourself in the abuse of this thing that previously was supportive in the use phase, then that's when you start to kind of slip away into addiction. And that is what had happened with me on social media. I used it, and it was generative and helpful and productive and connective and wonderful and fun. And then the use started going into abuse, and I was not paying attention to my somatic state and to how I was slipping away from myself. And then that abuse very quickly turned into addiction. And that was the point where for many years, people were at first subtly and then very overtly telling me that they were concerned about what they were seeing happen with me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like there's a cycle as well. Deconstruction feels like such an old word now and such a limited word, but part of that journey of, I would call it unlearning and relearning, awakening, that journey, where I saw people go through this cycle of, and I knew this because I'd been through it as well, of like where you would start to get really, really angry. Not you particularly, but people would start to get really, really angry and start being angry at everything. And it would be all this like, oh, you've got all this grief from leaving the church behind and realizing what you were part of and what that did to you and what that did to other people. And that's all, now it's coming up. This is part of your grieving, because deconstruction is kind of grieving, a grief and recovery. And I experienced that as well. Like I had a lot of anger at times. I was just angry at everything, and it took unfortunately losing friendships and making mistakes to realize that. But I always had a commitment to continuing to grow and heal, and therapy helped as well. But once I was through that, it was easier to see for other people were going through it.
Yes.
And it was easier for me to say, I'm not going to interfere, because they need to do this.
That's exactly right.
They will. This is just. I don't want to say it's a phase. I hate that phrase, but this is part of their journey, and this is going to come up for them.
Yes.
And there's a difference between that and what you were doing, which had got you got so into, like you say, addicted to almost addicted to outrage, because that's the algorithm. That is the algorithm of Twitter. It's outrage.
Yes.
They want you addicted to outrage, because then you spend more time there, which means they make more money.
Yes.
And blue tick accounts who know how to do this can manipulate people with leading tweets to keep people engaging with them, keep people tweeting, keep people getting angry, and it becomes your whole personality, and that's how people
Yes.
get radicalized on social media, and it's really
It is a
sad.
it is a wide scale it's a wide scale assault on the nervous systems of human beings. And I'm not the kind of person who, you know, I'm a very loose conspiracy theorist in that I think every conspiracy theory, if you take it all the way to the top, all the way to the top is like pain, human pain, like base. And that's like, anyone who is in pain and doesn't know how to experience the pain in their body, the unprocessed pain in their body, is manifesting as like greed. So through a capitalistic lens, like increase profit at all costs. That's what's going on. We've created these technologies and these kind of online, these virtual um, town squares for people to gather, and the metrics of success from the companies that have created these products and these spaces. I mean, they're functioning under the same capitalistic mindset as any other company, which is like increased revenue no matter what. And if eyeballs, if like they've got enough data and enough information to show that like eyeballs on their app, attention focused on the app increases revenue, then they're going to do what needs to be done to increase attention and orientation and eyeballs on the app. And there is enough data at this point for all of us to know that, like you're saying, outrage, if you can hack the nervous system, if you can get someone dysregulated, whether that is upregulation and they're in the fight flight thing, they just want to get in there and have an argument with total stranger, or they're in like the freeze fawn collapse and they're just like numb and stuck and scrolling and can't stop scrolling and can't stop scrolling and cannot like get into their body even enough to like put the phone down. Either way, that profound state of dysregulation is money making for these companies. So there's no this is the thing I say a lot, there's no cartoon villains here. It's just people making choices out of unprocessed pain that's in alignment with their ethics and values. And we don't have to participate. That's the thing. You can learn a way of being in your body where you are either totally divesting, like I've decided to do with Twitter, or where you are participating in a way where you maintain your sovereignty and agency, which is what you've managed to do with Twitter and what I've actually managed to do with Instagram. So it's entirely possible. And in fact, my social media director, Erin, and we a few times a year, we teach a workshop on how to get yourself unaddicted from social media and tech. And it's because we know the playbook, we teach the playbook because we lived and embodied the playbook. And then we sat down for a few months and we're like, okay, what did we do? How can we teach this? And it's been really, I think we've done like 5 of these workshops, and incredibly impactful for people. Because what you're saying, exactly what and I'm just kind of extrapolating off of what you're saying, that yes, outrage is the thing that sells. So it is the thing that is promoted by the algorithm. And I've learned even so much of this just from doing this workshop with Erin, because she has so much knowledge on these systems and media literacy, and her role for the last few years of being someone who like does social media for a job. There's so much that I was feeling and sensing in my body that I now know there's raw data on of like what is going on here. And the thing I always anchor in, I will permanently be an optimist because I believe in bodies and I believe in the resilience of the body and the resilience of the mind. And so it is not something we have to just wave a white flag and surrender and say, well, this is the way of the world. This is how it's going. They're more powerful than us. They have more money. They can do whatever they want. And I'm just a victim to it. I actually believe our bodies are stronger than that, and our minds are stronger than that. And that most of us at this point are waking up to the fact that we would prefer an alternative way of being. And it is entirely possible.
Yeah, and then that's part. I mean, one of the results of the work that I've done with you, and and also in that community that we are both in the cover,
Yeah.
is, and also with my therapy as well,
Yeah.
is kind of, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the book that I'm kind of in, that's in my head right now, and how this is relevant to that. But is kind of unlearning this system that we were all brought up in, capitalism, we were indoctrinated into, and how this system oppresses our intuition. It oppresses it stamps down on our humanity. It turns us into robots, and it can weaponize our grief and our trauma. And this happened to me, and the church also does this as well. It plays its part in this. This is how that happened to me, and my journey was, and I think this is your journey as well, from what you're saying, and our journey in the coven is kind of reconnecting with our bodies, reconnecting with our humanity, reconnecting with our core self, reconnecting to the earth. And as we do that, our bodies and our consciousness disconnect from the thing that we were brought up in,
Yes.
the depressive systems. And as we reconnect to ourselves, we discover parts of ourselves that we kind of forgot about. Like for me, one of those things was actually really cultivating my love of Superman, which
Yeah.
I had as a kid, and
Yeah.
like I still always loved that character, but like it really came back again. Like and one of the things I do on Twitter is talk about that a lot and talk about hope and all that kind of thing,
Yeah.
because that's and that was kind of reclaiming stuff, right? But as we disconnect from that system, it's harder for our bodies to exist within it,
Yes.
or or alternatively, actually, we realize how hard it was all along, but we were just numbing that
Yeah.
all
We're
the time.
awake to it now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now our bodies are like, no, 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 we can't do this that often.
Yes.
And it's like, because I remember I used to go into work every day to commute every day 20 years ago, like going to London, like right in the middle of a load of people, work 8 hours, come home on the train, rush hour, lots of people. And I used to somehow get through it and be okay with it. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, I wasn't.
Wow.
I was surviving it. I
Yeah.
was numbing all the tiredness. I was just like, no, I've just got to get through this. This is how the world is. I've got to. And now my body's like, nope, we're not doing that. Like,
Well, and that has
um,
been what I have witnessed be so much of your journey and process through our one-on-one work together right at first, like you said, beginning in March 2020, and then us being in this online community get together. And then we've done like one-off sessions like pretty
yeah,
frequently in the years since. And I know I've reflected this to you before and often that I've seen this this growth in you, this journey of growth in you. And it's not the growth, it has been a growth of resilience, like you and your body establishing more resilience with one another. But what I don't mean by resilience is that you figured out a way to just like handle it and do it all anyway. What I do mean by resilience is that you've cultivated a resilience with your body, that you have been able to validate him when he is telling you, stop here, don't go any further, or stop doing that thing over there because I cannot, it's untenable for me to take in that much stimulation. Like the resilience that I've seen you cultivate and the strength that I've seen you cultivate in your relationship with your body really has been rooted in and sourced from a profound trust, where you've moved from, like you said, like 20 years ago, just being on an autopilot, assuming it's fine. And anytime your body's like, this is not fine, assuming he must be wrong. I've reflected to you so many times that like your body is a truth teller. And so this resilience you have established with your body that's been rooted and sourced from that trust is you beginning to believe that he is telling you the truth. And when you have come into an agreement with him and an alignment with him and said, I'm choosing him over cultural expectations of me. I'm choosing my body and the well-being of my body over, who it is that my stories are telling me I am supposed to be in this world to be good and safe. I'm choosing what my body is saying right now. And what is fascinating is in you choosing your body and aligning with your body, that strength and that resilience has increased. So it's so fascinating because I've seen you actually be able to handle more because you are trusting him more when he's telling you, here's all the stuff I can't handle. Here's all the stuff I am not willing to do anymore. So I just think it's been such a gorgeous dance to watch you and your body
yeah,
kind of dance together, where sometimes you lead and he follows, and then sometimes he leads and you follow. And the main thing that I've seen is just an incredible increase and strengthening in the trust that you have with him.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of because of the work we've done together, and also part of the work of the coven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a journey that many of us have been on.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
just this kind of, you learn that the world wasn't made like this. This is not how,
Mm-hmm.
like we were just brought up this way. Like we were just conditioned to live this way. Like actually, there's a better way to be human in the world.
And I can. it. I can just
Yeah.
choose it. Like any
Yeah.
given present moment, I can just choose to believe my body. I can choose to believe, not only believe what my body is saying, but also believe that my body is actually probably stronger than I'm being led to believe that my body is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing as well, the way that one way I know this is how transformational this is that my first instinct is not to go and like I want to go and tell everyone and convert everyone.
Yep.
I don't want to do that because like I want other. I'd like other people to discover this, but I don't. But I'm not going to go and put it on anyone. Like because people have to have their own journeys and have to make their own minds up, and have to have their own experiences and not be told or prescribed anything. Right? That's something you learn on the journey. Is that everybody is different.
Yes.
Like every body is different.
And you know
Like
that
and
metaphor for like when a caterpillar like melts into the goo in the cocoon and then has to like break open the cocoon with the wings and they have to do it. You can't help them with the cocoon or else their wings won't be strong enough to fly and actually live. That's what I think about a lot is wherever someone is on their journey, I don't want to interrupt the process unless they come to me, and this helps that I'm a facilitator and like there's a clear boundary and delineation of like money being paid. Unless someone comes to me and says I'm interested in paying you like the amount of money you charge to help me in this transformational moment, unless now at this point I have such strong boundaries around this, and unless someone does that, I'm not involving myself. Like, and I guess now it extends to when people come to get on my table and experience body work and the way I facilitate that too. But
mm,
unless someone is of their own volition putting themselves into the role of client in that temporary moment, I'm not involving myself in believing I need to save someone from the process they're walking through. In fact, that was one of the biggest things I now understand I was doing that was contributing to my burnout, is that I was codependent. I was codependent all over the place. I was trying to rescue people from their own life path and their own, the
yeah,
consequences of their own choices because I believed I couldn't handle the vulnerability and the fear and all of the emotion, sensations, and feelings that went along with someone else living authentically in front of me. That was a
yeah,
me thing. That was a me problem. So
yeah.
I don't open the cocoon for people anymore.
That's right. And codependent, like capitalism and even evangelicalism, can teach you codependency. Like as
Yes.
normal. And medicating everything is normal. Like like you have someone. Like I mean, the best example from my own life is when my mother died in 2000. Right, I worked for a private company at the time, and I had a couple 2 3 weeks off or something and I was thinking it'd be compassionate leave, whatever. Still wasn't ready to go back to work, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
expect to go back to work.
Yeah.
But I went back to work, and they tried to make me take it as annual leave. My
Hmm.
mum had just
Wow.
died.
Wow.
I was 23. My mum was 52, and like
Wow.
that is not when that's meant to happen.
Yeah.
And it had happened, and they were still trying to wheel as much out of it as they could. And that's an example of like how like you're just a robot. You're not human. You don't have like emotions or what. Oh, you got somehow we have to accommodate those. It's just that is a primary, and even the best companies that do
Right.
allow good time for all those things, you still have to come back after 2 or 3 weeks. And sometimes people aren't ready for that.
Well, and this
It
is,
is a-
what you're speaking to largely is just like it's a failure of imagination of what we could be doing differently that would be more supportive to people and to bodies. And when I hear you sharing this and I hear you, saying like they of the story of like the people who are not allowing you and your body to experience the grief process you really needed, those people also were suffering under the
yeah,
expectations and mandate of what, the company they were working for and what was understood at that time, at that point in in that type of normative consciousness of like this is best business practice, so we just have to enforce it no matter the cost. So like we have all been and continue to suffer under these expectations that we have on people and on bodies. And I believe that that previous failure of imagination is starting to change as well. I think, again, we're starting to gather too much good data on the fact that actually, like, if you want to make it about numbers and you want to make it about like productivity, in fact, Johan Hari's book Stolen Focus talks about this quite a bit. Is, you know, the prototyping they've done in some I'm gonna fuck this up a little bit, in some places on the planet. I think in Scandinavia they've prototyped like the 4-day work week, and like that's the bare minimum, 4-day work week, and also all this extra stuff that is really just the simplest, like, go enjoy your life and be a person, and then be here and contribute as the outgrowth of like enjoying your life and being a person. And surprise, surprise, all the metrics of like success and productivity increase when
Yeah.
people are given the permission to maintain their humanity inside of a work environment. So I do believe this is starting to change and update quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It definitely is. Yeah, there's a lot of examples of that. And I just, I just like, you know what capitalism's like though. If you went to a 4-day week, they would decrease your salary based
Well,
because it'd be all per hour. Now, I'm not a cynic
now,
at all.
in these
Like,
prototypes that they've been running, they haven't decreased anything. And if I'm remembering, there may have been even some where they like
really?
increased or something. Yeah.
Oh
Again,
wow.
remember that like what can get us into trouble is like when we get stuck in a story, right? So we have this story. It's been cathartic for a certain period of time to go, capitalism has been doing X, Y, and Z to us. And if we keep reverting back to that story and never believe that we can imagine something better, then we will keep
Yes.
being at odds with the idea of capitalism instead of, and it really isn't capitalism, it is late stage, what capitalism has become unchecked. Because the origin of capitalism, the original idea of capitalism actually is make something excellent and people will be drawn to it. Like, that's great. Actually, you want a free market. That is actually very, very, very great and good in its original form. But what we tend to do with systems when they become large scale systems, they stop functioning according to the original imagination and the best intended design. That doesn't mean throw the entire system out. It means begin to imagine a better way of maintaining the soul of the original design and expressing it with greater integrity. So this is why I'm kind of belaboring this point, is like, I hear you in what you're saying of like, oh, but if we imagine something, then, from that previous, kind of ethic or consciousness, well, there would be some sort of, they would punish us for it. If we get a benefit, then there would be a punishment. But apparently in some of these things they're prototyping, there's only benefit and no punishment, and it's working really, really well. So
That's
I
great. That's
think,
what it should
yeah,
be. Like, that's like, as I'm a big fan of that idea, the 4-day week. I mean, there's a guy that I had on my podcast who wrote a book called "Laziness Does Not Exist."
that's great.
They wrote a book. That's their pronoun. They wrote that book, uh, and it basically talks about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That as bodies, we are healthy. We can get more done
Yes.
working less hours, less days a week. And actually, even with the working hours that we have, the amount of actual hours we work is not that
Yes.
because our bodies can't do that. And
Mhm.
physically, concentration wise, everything, they can't do that. And so you're right, and yeah, that's right. I mean, imagination is the way to change the world, isn't it? It always has
Yes.
been.
Yes.
Dreaming and believing something better is possible. And uh, I have hope for that. I have hope for that. And
Yeah. Well, I
yeah,
mean,
like,
we wouldn't be writers if we didn't have hope for that. Like, that is, I think that for me, at least in my experience of being a writer, I don't know chicken or egg, which came first, whether I'm a writer because I am an optimist or if I'm an optimist because I'm a writer. But my highest commitment is meaning making. And so and because that's the better story. I guess maybe because my highest, commitment, my highest ethic in this avenue is like, make it the most beautiful possible story. So I will apply that to my own life and also make that the lens through which I look at the world at. Can I make it the most beautiful possible story and draw the deepest, most profound meaning out of what is happening in front of me? And if I can do that, then I am in integrity.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah, and one thing, that story you told at the beginning of the episode, um, when you go down to that dark place,
Yeah.
like, and I think I quoted an X-Men movie where this with this from this the other day in one of our calls,
Mm-hmm.
um, where you go down to that place and it's dark and it's painful and it's difficult and you feel it all and you have to express it all. It's when you go through that and when you come out the other side and you've done that healing work and you've done that transformation and you've reconnected with your body, that's when you discover hope. You don't
Yes.
discover hope is not. There's a difference between blind optimism, which has no foundation, really. It doesn't have this deep soul grounding.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas hope has this grounding in, like, I've seen what it's like. I
Yes.
know what
Yeah.
what pain is like. I know what grief is like. I know how crap the world can be. I've experienced it, and I've gone through that, and I've healed, and then I've discovered hope, and I have even more hope because of it.
Yeah.
That's my story, kind of. I mean, I was
Yeah.
always a hopeful person anyway, but now I have more hope.
Mhm.
And it's the same with you, right? We
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know whether it's a writer's thing or whether it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what way around it is. It's
Yeah.
like a circle.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, but that's what people don't realize. I think sometimes is it's when you do all that work and you feel the pain and you feel the emotion and you experience it and you allow yourself to experience it in safe environments with qualified people and experts and um, who can help you through it and in healthy community with people that are safe. Um, when you do that, uh, there is ultimately freedom and there is hope. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's I think that's both of our stories really. It's
Yeah.
and the Coven has been that community for us, and it still is, and
Yeah.
always will be. Like I don't,
It's been so special. I mean, it just really, and I know I've said this a lot in there, probably say it like every month when we gather, but it's been so gorgeous to witness the parallels in so many of our lives and the ways in which, thematically we have all seemed to find resonance consistently over the last 4 years. Now, obviously, when the Coven first started, there were hundreds of people in it. And I really love this motion. Again, if we're like turning kind of the late stage capitalist imagination on its head and the values and metrics of success, my my metric of success, or what has made it clear to me that my investment in the Coven is successful, is these relationships that have come from it, and like the resonance and the communal processing and the communal healing that we found in our gathering there. Not like how many people are in the container and paying the monthly due, that then means I have this much money in my bank account. Like when I first started the membership space, that was the consciousness I was functioning under. And so I was creating content to try and make it marketable. And it just like, this is the actual overarching story of my life, is like, I don't want to create content to make anything about me or what I do marketable like ever again. I just want to like do good work quietly and then have a referral system. And then like, that's it. Just do good work very quietly and then talk about it and write about it and let that be kind of the public facing thing. But like active selling doesn't feel good to me. I don't like doing it. So moving away from that being the ethic of like my membership space where I'm actively promoting and actively selling to get more people into it, and instead just letting it be our sweet little shire and just letting people come and go as they please. We've had, I mean, the vast majority of people over the last 4 years have ultimately left, and a decent amount of those people messaged me before leaving and were like, this has been so wonderful and I don't need it anymore and thank you. And I'm like, that is great. I love this. And we've had people who've left because of, for whatever reasons, financial, or just they don't want to be on their computer as much anymore. That's also awesome. And then they've come up to another season of life where they're like, I kind of miss it. I miss those monthly calls. I want to come back. And then they do. And it feels really free and spacious and inviting and open, and also somehow really intimate. and
Mm.
connected at the same time. And
Yeah.
I didn't do that. That's the thing. Like we all did that together, and it just
Yeah.
feels so
It's a co-created space.
yeah.
And
Yep.
there's no hierarchy at
Yeah.
all. And that's why I love it.
Yeah, me too.
There's no. I mean, yeah, there's just no hierarchy, right? And I
Hmm.
just we're all in it together. We're all supporting each other. We're all
Yeah.
on the same
Yeah.
level playing field.
Hmm. I
We have
prefer it that way too. I was not enjoying the version where it's so fun. I know we've all talked about this before. Where like going from like the monthly calls from like 4 years ago where I would like show up like makeup and lipstick and like with a
yeah,
presentation, and now I'm just like, what are we going to talk about this month, guys? Like, and I
yeah,
barely ever get to the notes I prepared because we all have so much to share with each other
yeah.
about
I
what we're
know,
learning,
and
what we're writing, what we're doing, what we're creating. And
I
then we have
love,
so much
yeah,
encouragement to volley back and forth to each other, and it's just so special.
it's brilliant. I love that. Yeah, I've loved the growth of it. I've actually loved how smaller it's got.
Me too. Yeah.
Like as an introvert and some
Mhm.
highly sensitive, and
And this isn't to
you
say to anyone
know,
who might be listening that you're not invited. Like you're absolutely
oh
invited to
yeah,
come hang
you're
out in
absolutely
any
invited.
tiny
Yeah,
space. Yeah.
like we're not all. That's the other thing. We're not cliquey there. Like
Yeah.
new people have come in and just immediately been part of it.
Yeah. And have
Like
stayed. Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Hmm.
but there's like people who've just joined in the last like 6 months
Hmm.
who just were instantly part of it, and I almost bonded with a couple of them really quickly because we had similar stories, and like we
Yep.
just had a like one-to-one Zoom call. We kind of shared each other's stories, and we were able to support each other. It was great,
I
and
love that.
they just joined, so it
Yep.
was there is no like clique or I mean, it's amazing. It's like the healthiest community
Yeah.
that I've ever been part of.
Me too. And I think
And
for me, what allowed it to become the healthiest community I've ever been a part of was for me to like disconnect from normative consciousness and go, wait, I don't want to be a leader here. I don't want that doesn't feel
yeah,
good.
that
It
was a
doesn't.
huge moment. That yeah,
Yeah, yes, yes. And I've just been able to like, I don't know, it feels like this journey for me of just this has been how I've been able to become more human in my online life has been through my relationships in the coven. That's the first time I've ever said it that way. That's 100% true. That is what has happened.
yeah. I mean, even some of us even arranged our own little meetup
Yeah.
about 18 months ago, and it was great. And there was again, it was like it wasn't like an event. We just hung out at somebody's house and played like Cards Against Humanity, and took edibles and ate food and watched movies, and like it was just and
Easy.
just
It's
hung out.
family.
And there was
Easy.
no obligation to stick around. I went home early because I was tired and wanted to go to sleep, and like it was just that was and it was typical. It was typical of
Yes.
what we are, and
Everyone has great boundaries. No one's taking offense. Everyone just loves to
yeah,
be there as long as you want to be there and
I have
blesses
not
you
been
on your way
triggered.
out.
I
Yeah.
have not been triggered in that space once.
Oh, that makes me
In
so delighted.
in 4 years there, I've not been triggered once really,
Yeah.
and and because I'm always able to be honest about how I'm feeling,
Yes.
and
And
just I
I've
feel
watched you again, I've watched you on that journey of like where there was maybe a greater in the past, a greater sensitivity and a guardedness about whether or not you might be triggered. And then as the trust and safety has increased, you just show up so
yeah.
completely as your full self.
There was a moment where which I have in a lot of communities where I have to like set down some things, say some things, and where my boundaries get pushed, and I have
Yeah.
to say some stuff, and I did that happened, but I got through it completely,
Yeah.
and it was fine, and yeah, I've talked about things in there that I've not talked about publicly anywhere, not
Mhm.
even on my podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, but all that could be like the bigger point, I guess, is that healthy community is part of healing and part of
Yeah.
embodiment and part of growth.
Yes.
We can't do it on our own. We need healthy community, and I think we need qualified people to help us do it as well.
Hmm.
That we're safe
Yeah.
with. It has to be
Yes.
people that we're safe with,
Yes.
not just any qualified person. A qualified person that you are safe with, you feel safe with,
Yeah.
and that's something your body will tell you immediately you meet them.
Yes.
Um,
I remember
yeah,
writing something years ago. It was probably something I tweeted. That's my best guess because it was just quippy and I used to do that a lot more, but the phrase essentially was find your safe people and tell them everything. like that was like the recipe for like full aliveness and wholeness. And I still stand by that. That feels really true in my body still, is like that the path has always been find your safe people and tell them
Yeah,
absolutely everything.
that's when I knew my person
Mm.
was my person.
Yeah.
My body
Yeah.
told me, my body told me, directly and indirectly, that we're safe.
I
Like,
love that for you so much. I love that for you so
I was
much.
so safe I could just fall asleep without
Yes.
even trying to
Yes.
fall asleep. And everyone who knows me knows I have insomnia and that I struggle to sleep and stuff, like, my whole life. And that is the first time anywhere that has happened. So I just knew that was profound. I knew that was like, okay, this is completely different. And
Mm.
like, we regulate each other in a way. Because
Yes.
it's a mutual thing. They feel
Right?
more safe around me, and I feel more safe around them, and
Yeah.
that's how you know.
I agree. I feel
So,
that too.
yeah. Well, this has been really great. It's been really great to, like, hear your story and how you've grown, and how that has obviously that's had an impact on me as well.
Mhm.
And our
Yeah.
journeys are kind of similar, and
Yeah.
but just that kind of disconnection from old systems and old ways of thinking and old algorithms of the world we live in, and reconnecting to your body and yourself and your consciousness, and but ultimately connecting to the earth and connecting to spirit as well.
Yes.
It's a powerful thing, and
Yeah.
that's something I want for everybody. you know, um, and
I think it's something
um,
that our souls desperately need, our spirits desperately need, especially in modernity, where a lot of times the prevailing consciousness and the prevailing narratives are, kind of the pointlessness of anything beyond ourselves, or the absurdity of believing in anything beyond ourselves. And so therefore, you may as well just kind of entertain yourself through just one wild and precious life you have. You may as well just become a really good consumer or a really productive cog in the machine, because what else could there possibly be? And I believe that there's a motion where humanity is beginning to move in a motion that is both forward progress and a return to something ancient, which is an awareness of, no, our souls and our spirits need something more alive and a better story. We need a better story than that. And it doesn't matter what you call it, because what you call it is just the semantics. It's, as Alan Watts said, it's just the finger pointing at the moon. What the moon ultimately is, whether you call it God, whether you call it source, whether you call it by any other name, what the moon in that analogy really is a somatic state. It's a nervous system state of safety and regulation and connection. And that is, I think that what can happen when people leave whatever it is they were raised to believe in the first part of their life, that then they do that really brave and important motion of deconstructing and leaving that, what seemed prescribed and what was fundamentalist and what was very, closed and certain. When you take that really brave motion to move out of certainty and to come into this vast landscape of the unknown, it's understandable that people can, decide that what feels best for them for a short period of time is to believe in nothing. I get it. I did that too. And at a certain point, my body made it very clear to me that she was suffering under my insistence on believing there was nothing beyond me, nothing worth connecting to, nothing with like more beauty and meaning than that. And so that's very much been for me kind of we might call it the reconstruction, post deconstruction, has been into like a really beautiful and free, authentic expression of spirituality and connectedness, like you're saying, with each other, with the earth, with mystery itself, with the things that I just cannot know and that are unknowable and uncontrollable. That's been really, I mean, this is an understatement. It's been incredibly powerful medicine. It's been maybe the strongest medicine I've ever taken. And I really do believe, to your point, I think it is vital medicine for the souls and spirits of humanity right now, is to be willing to kind of do that motion that Richard Rohr talks about, of like transcend and include, instead of like anchoring
Yeah.
into this idea that there's nothing here and my certainty allows me to arrive at the conclusion. There's nothing here. It's almost like I want to look at people and be like, is that working for you? Like, really, like, how does your body feel? How does your life feel? To anchor into the certainty that there could be nothing beyond you. Like, how does that feel in your body? Because if it feels good in your body, I'm, sure, live your life. But if it doesn't feel good in your body, why are you clinging to that certainty? Why are you clinging to that belief? Because there is a better way to feel.
Absolutely. 100%. Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie.
Oh, thank you, James. This
It's
has
always a
been so
joy
wonderful.
having you here. Just one thing, like, where is your Substack so people can check it out?
Yes. So let me just actually confirm right now. Okay, it is. Okay. It's jamieleefinch.substack.com. So you can either go on Substack and search Jamie Lee Finch. It's also called Love Letters, so you can maybe search for it that way. But yeah, I love it. Substack is the best. It's very non-social media, social media. And I love
Yeah,
being able to like do long form writing again and share it with the world, which feels so different than what I was previously doing on Twitter. So yeah, I would love for people to connect with me there.
fantastic. Great. Highly recommend it. I read it. It's always inspiring. So yes, and I can't wait for your next book.
Me too. We'll see when it happens. I finally got the title. I know what the title is going to be, but I'm not going to say it because I'm not afraid of someone taking it. I just want to be very close and protective with it. But
I know that.
yeah, I know you do.
That.
But I do have the title, and now that I know I have the title, I'm like, ooh, okay, we're going to get momentum here soon. So
I love that when that happens. That's great. Great part of the creative process. Yeah. It's like your own secret, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, okay. Thank you, Jamie. I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Yeah, I hope so.
And thanks for listening, everybody.